Hello, TCI family, Jonathan's Refuge, and all of our faithful followers and friends. It is my pleasure as the Archbishop of the Church of Inclusion to come to you guys tonight for our Thursday night church service in Maryville, Washington. I have the great pleasure of hosting tonight a couple of our church members. We have a wonderful man to my immediate left named Ty Shaw. For those of you that go on the Church of Inclusion's website, which is inclusion.church. So it's www.inclusion.church. And Mr. Ty Shaw is our web host. And so if you're ever on there and you're like, wow, that really looks amazing, give him a shout. Say thank you to Ty. He's the one that does all that and heads up the entire media department and stuff. Very, very grateful for him in our life. On the other side of the spectrum over there is an interesting character. You guys might have seen him. He was a Pirates of the Caribbean. No, I'm kidding. He's better than Johnny Depp, okay? He is the true pirate. Do you know why pirates are so grumpy? TJ taught me. Because they just, arr, get it? Arr. Okay, it was funnier in my head. All right, so the message tonight is coming out of the Old Testament in the Bible. So for those that are Christians, open up your Bible to 2 Samuel chapter 11 and read it. If you're of the Jewish faith, please do me a favor and grab the different scrolls. And it's not in the Torah. It's one of the book of Samuel, and the second book to be exact, in chapter 11. And it's an amazing story about a king, King David, one of my namesakes, and it's one of my middle names. And David is a great man. I've taught about him my whole life. My father spoke and preached and wrote books on him his whole life. This is a life that I've studied. And because my path and David's have gone along very similar. And unfortunately, he lived by the sword. So did I. And I've learned a lot from how a man can go from being a man of war to a man of peace and everything that comes in between. So in this chapter, guys, David was supposed to go out in the springtime back in that era, a couple thousand, we're talking, 2,500 years ago? They would send, everyone would go to war. There was a certain time of the year. I know it seems like funny nowadays, right? Springtime, we plant our stuff, and then we harvest in the fall. Well, back then, we went to war at this time, and we finished at this time. And so David, being the king, should have gone to war with his generals and his soldiers. But he chose not to. He chose to stay home. His duties were to be a king, was to go out as the leader of his men. He was supposed to lead. But he decided to kick back. Put his foot up on the table. Look out over his kingdom. And he looked down, and guess what? Below his house, a couple houses down, was a woman named Bathsheba. And he ended up seeing her naked. She was bathing herself. And he got one of his right-hand people in his room and said, yo, who's that beautiful lady? And they said, oh, that's Uriah's wife, the daughter of so-and-so. She's married to one of your men. So the king calls for her. She comes up to him. They have sex. She commits adultery. He commits adultery. She gets pregnant. Sends word to the king, I'm pregnant now, but my husband's been at war for you. This is all going to end bad. So David tries to figure, I know what I'll do. I'll cover up my mistake. They call it a sin. It means you missed the mark. So he made a sin. He missed the mark. He shouldn't have been sleeping with another man's wife. He shouldn't have been sleeping around. He had like 130 some odd wives. It's not like he didn't have enough to choose from. But he had to have this one. Now she's pregnant. So he calls the soldier home. And then he says, give him, tell Uriah to bring my reports back to me next week. So Uriah brings it back. And then he says to Uriah, thank you, good soldier. Now that you've given me the report, I want you to go home to your house and see your wife tonight. Lay with your wife. Enjoy the night. Next morning, he gets up thinking it's all set. His guy would have gone home, had sex with his wife. Then they could say it's his kid. But Uriah was too much of an honorable man. And he didn't feel comfortable sleeping in the bed with his wife when his soldiers were on the floor with blood. So he chose to sleep on the cement, this cobblestone below his house on the front door. And when that came back, he ordered Uriah to go sleep with his wife. And Uriah said, I'm not going to do that. My men are dying and shedding blood for you. I want to go back to my men. So he did. So what he did is he gave him a letter. And the letter was closed and sealed, and he was supposed to take it to Abner, the head general. He hands the letter, and the general reads it, and it says, I need you to take Uriah and put him at the fiercest point in the battle at the wall, and then abandon him so he'll die. The guy carried his own death warrant, his own death letter, and David did exactly as it did. And the general followed the king's orders, and they allowed Uriah to go to the front where he was fighting for his king, and he died. And then, of course, the rest of the story, they had a miscarriage, and the baby died. And so then he married her, and that's who his King Solomon was born, who was the wisest king of all time. Out of tragedy and things that can happen that are not so good, we find beauty from ashes. But this part of the story is about being a man for us today. It's about doing the right thing. You see, there's some things that aren't easy to do, but it's about the right thing. You guys ever been given extra money sometimes and you actually told them, hey, you gave me too much money? You ever been around that kind of situation? I only know that because I've heard them tell me some stories about that. They're like, hey, you overpaid me. I tell this one all the time. I'm like, hey, I know you just paid your program fees and stuff, but you paid me like $10 too much. And he's like, yeah, keep it. I'm like, you give me a tip? Because I'm worth a lot more than just $10 for a tip. He overpays. He loves doing that and blessing people. And in our church, we teach that by example, not by words. So if you looked at the title, we said today the message is about your actions are what matter, not your words. See, I'm a man, so I'm gonna use the word man. So don't be gender offended. If you're a woman, use the word woman. I'm not a woman, so I can tell you what I think women are thinking, but I was raised by 7 sisters total. My birth sisters, my adopted sisters, 2 moms, and then a 3rd mom, 3 dads. So I was totally raised by women. I have a good pulse on a female, but I'm not a female. So I'm going to speak from a male perspective. And as a man, I know sometimes it's not easy to do the right thing. But it's okay to bite down, squeeze those fists and say, I'm going to be a man. I'm not going to do this because a man doesn't do that. We don't cheat. We don't rob. We don't steal. We don't rape. We don't pillage. We don't destroy. We don't do crooked dealings. We don't take shady funds. My wife, guys, she received a call today from the government. They informed her that she's available for extra money that's being discharged. And she's like, okay, first off, when the government is calling you, trying to give you free money, be weary. And she says, yeah, this is one of the departments that's trying to give all this cash away because they're afraid of the next president's going to spend it all or something, which is the stupidest thing, and that's why our country's where it's at. But anyways, my wife had integrity and character. Her actions spoke more than words. She says, why would I do that? And they're like, because it's free money from the government. And she says, I don't need the government's free money. I make a living. And they're like, oh, well, fine. Go to someone else. Now, she could have taken the money. The government says she's qualified to get it because she didn't get payments for some extra funds that were hers. She doesn't need it. She could have said, give it to me, but she didn't. And that speaks volumes to me. You know, when you look at the life of David, he just had to go to war. That was his duty at that time. Instead, he was lazy and he was selfish and greedy. Now, listen, there's a good time to be selfish and greedy. I just taught a lesson on it. You need to be selfish and greedy when it comes to you so you can fix you before you try to worry about fixing everyone else around you. That's a good selfishness, good greediness. When I call up and Ty's like, hey, boss, I'd love to help you, but I'm working on this project at school and I'm trying to further my education. That's selfish. No, it's not. It's a good selfishness. He's trying to improve himself. He's not putting me off because he wants to play a video game. He had to put me off because he's got a college class he's taking towards his degree, towards his future. That's what real men do. There's their actions. At any time, guys, do you ever feel like David sometimes, that moment when he's standing on top of his castle and he's looking going, I don't really want to go to war. I know I'm supposed to go to school today. You know, I know I'm supposed to go train the dog. Do I really want to hop on my bike, ride an hour, even though, you know, I said I'm going to do it, and then I got to ride an hour back, and I'm going to be in the rain because we live in Washington. Don't, I mean,
Yeah, of course. I think that almost every day. and
good, because I do too. I'm glad it's not just me.
and especially when objective or tasks come up, and then I think, what is my why? Why would I want to get up? And then I think, oh, well, I actually have a wonderful life, and it might not be top tier, but it's something that I used to didn't have at all. And so I get up because of my why. That's why.
I like one of the things he said. It's not top tier. He's working for what?
I'm working for top tier.
Top tier. I like that. See, our guys, yeah, look at that. They're trained. They understand the fine things. They go to fine restaurants. We took Ty to a restaurant. It cost us like $500-600. The general manager, remember that? The general manager comes with the waitresses, like 7 people. This whole entourage comes out, and there was only 4 of us. 3 board members and Ty, treating Ty to this amazing dinner. These guys understand the fine things in life, like King David did. But they also understand responsibility. There's been times when I've said, "You guys want to go and do this?" And they're like, "Oh, man, of course we do, but you already asked me to do something, and I said I was going to do that." Now, you can tell they were sad, but they didn't say it to get out of it because they didn't have to get out of it. They said, "No, I'll do what I agreed to do because I'm a man. I'm a man of my word." See, my father said something as a boy to me when first lesson I ever remember teaching. You might not agree because I come from an old school, rough group of men. But he said, without your word, a man is worthless. And you know something? I'll stand by that. If you are not a person of your word, you're worthless. Does it mean you are a worthless person? No, it means your word is worthless. That's what it means. You're not worthless. Your word is worthless. So if I say, Ty Shaw, I need you to handle this for me, and he says I'm going to handle it, I don't blink. It's handled. He said he would take care of it. He gave me his word. I take him at his word. Now, if he failed every time, what am I going to stop doing eventually?
Trusting my word.
I'm not going to trust your word at all because a man that can't keep his word is what?
Worthless.
Is he worthless? No. His word is worthless. And I was taught that as a boy. So it's something. Have I ever broken my word? I hate to tell you, I have actually, a couple times. I know. He's shocked. I have a couple times in my life. I broke my word, long time ago. And one of them was a simple thing. I just thought I had no choice. I had a choice. You always have a choice. You always have a choice. I didn't have to become a gangster. I didn't have to become a thug. I didn't have to get into that world. I thought I did. There was another option. Okay? And so our word is important. David gave his word as a king to be a ruler, fair, just. Was it just that he killed a man to cover his sin? He committed adultery and he kills the guy for it. It's horrible. And he paid a price, a very, very heavy price. The loss of a child and many other things in his life that happened because of that action. So as we look at the concept of actions versus words, in David's head, he was sitting on the balcony saying, "Yeah, I'm the king. I'm a righteous man." But he wasn't. He was checking out another man's life and then using his position as king to better and commit adultery. And there it is. And then after that, he had to commit another crime called murder to cover his adultery. And then when that happened, he then got caught and got called out by the spiritual leader of his time. Straight up, looked right at him and said, "You did this and this. You committed adultery. And then instead of repenting, you went out, committed murder." Man, so you start to understand I love this guy so much because I can relate to this man. And I think of all the stuff I've done in my life and the violence. And I look at my words, and that's what's important. It's my words and your words. Your words matter, Mr. Shaw. When I say I'm leaving town, Ty, and here's the 3 tasks I have. Can you tackle these? Mr. Shaw will look at me and say, "I can do that. I give you my word. I can put it to rest. He will not sleep until it's done because he's a man of his word." I remember one time I came over to get him, and he's like, he got rings under his eyes, over his eyes, around his eyes. He's like nodding off on the way to Safeway. I'm like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "I told you I'd get it done. I got it done. But I forgot to sleep." He worked all night. I wouldn't have cared if he called up and gave me, "I need one more day." But he is such a man of his word that it means something. So we instill that at our church into the men and women in our organization, that a woman is a woman of her word. I don't worry about my wife. My wife doesn't worry about me. Why? We gave our words to each other. We love and take care of each other and cherish each other. I don't question, is my wife going to be mean to me? She's never been mean to me purposefully. Don't tell her she's been mean a few times, but it was not by purpose. Probably going to get hit when she sees this. But no, my point is, be men and women of your word. David broke his word, and it cost him not just adultery, but it just cost him a murder, and then it cost him his child and many other things that went down from it. So sometimes you can look at, you're trying to cover up. I'm trying to show you how you don't have to even worry about the cover up. Let's stop it before I have to get to the cover up. Let's not try to go out and murder someone because we committed adultery, or maybe we took money from the company and we didn't deserve it. I'm dealing with an employee right now that didn't do the job properly, and yet I paid for it. That's stealing from me. That's stealing from the nonprofit. That's not proper. But people nowadays do it all the time. It's kind of like, hey, it's no biggie. I got busy. I got kids. I got family. I got companies I work for. That's not being a man and woman of your word. And so when you start to see people around you, I know in my professional career, people used to ask me, I just got a job offer from when I went up to Birch Bay with a couple of the board members. The resort heard I was there. Took them to a resort that I developed and built and sold. And everyone in the industry heard I was in a timeshare resort. So the whole world's like, ooh, Scuttlebutt was out there. Because in that world, I'm kind of a big deal. And so when I got home that week, the next week, phone call. Hey, how you doing, man? What you doing? I'm like, who's this? It's John, your buddy John, your boss. Hey, man, look, we got some projects in Mexico. You want to come run them? You need $400,000. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're not even in my, first off, that's a 6-figure job. I'm in 7 figures now. What's wrong with you offering me a 6-figure job? Why did he do that? And other fellows have said, Brad, how do you get offers like that? Become a man of your word. That's how, gentlemen. It's because I became a man of my word. These men live at Jonathan's Refuge. Each one of these men are leaders in our organization. TJ oversees a property for us. It's only a small property, but he oversees that property. He's a leader there. Now, TJ, is being a leader easy?
It is not.
Is it sometimes stuff you wish you didn't have to do too?
It does take a toll on me. Sometimes I even stay awake when I should be sleeping, thinking, how can I make this better? How can I make this work?
Now, let me ask you this question. Was that something you even thought about a few years back?
Nope.
You see, what we try to do at our organization, in our church, in our spiritual retreat, our spiritual refuge, is we try to give the men and women paths to follow. Paths that will lead them to a happier life. That's what God wants for all of you, a happier life. Doesn't matter who's president. Doesn't matter who's in the Senate or the Congress. Your life should be a happy life. And I don't ever allow it. I don't care if it was Bill Clinton, George Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Donald Trump again. I don't care, people, who's in the office. It doesn't make my life a happier or not happier life, because I and I alone, Ty and Ty alone, and TJ alone make the choice and the decision to have a good life, even when it's obstacles that are hard to overcome. And so doing the right thing is not always easy. It's usually the hardest thing. And like my wife today, it's not always the most financial thing. She threw free money away, but why take it? She needs other people in the country that might need it a lot more than her. And so that is integrity and character, being a woman and a man of your word. Do you guys have anything to add?
It's better to be a man of your word, even if it's not late.
So even if you lose everything?
Even if you lose everything,
it's better to be a man of your word. Even if you can lie and just cover up or cheat one thing and save yourself, is it better to do that? Or is it better to be a man of your word and integrity and character and lose all?
It's better to always be a man of your word, even if it costs you a lot. For some people, it has cost a lot.
That's the key. It's going to cost you sometimes everything. That's what I've learned in my 49 years. I've had to lay it all on the line sometimes. Financially, physically, spiritually. I'm right now, this whole last few weeks, I've been teaching on transformation in our lives. What it's like to be a man and a woman, an adult, a grown-ass person. I know you're not used to hearing archbishops talk like that. Well, guess what? Maybe you need to get around a grown-ass archbishop who can teach you how to be a grown-ass person. Because that's our problem nowadays, is we're building little babies who cry and need timeouts. You don't think TJ doesn't get a little stressed out sometimes, a little anxious? He's autistic, they say. He's on the spectrum, they say. We should give him plenty of breaks, they say. We should not in any way put pressure on him like all other normal people. And that's when I say, oh, the second you just called my guy not normal, you're done. I'm going to put pressure on him. I'm going to encourage him. I'm going to tell him you can do this. And don't give me you can't do it because you got issues, because so do I. And look at him smiling over there. That's a guy who never smiled when I met him. His teeth were, bro, what did your teeth look like?
They looked worse than Pirates of the Caribbean.
The Pirates of the Caribbean. Now this guy doesn't stop smiling, showing them beautiful teeth, not black and yellow and greens and funky growing things. He cares about his future. He's looking to get himself into a career. He's trying to find out how he can pay his way in this world and not be a leech on society. He's trying to be the solution for other people to help become self-sufficient. I am more impressed with these two men than I can tell you guys that I know that got their degrees at universities that I attended with them. And they got millions of dollars and they don't do anything about integrity and character. I would give any one of these guys a company and gladly build one with them, because whatever they say is going to happen, because they're men of their word. That's the point of this message as we wrap it up today. King David failed, and that was a major failure. And it cost people lives. People died, and a lot of pain and suffering came thereafter. He could have stopped it by just continuing to be a man of his word. Yes, as a man or a woman, we have desires. We want to have fun. We want to go out and enjoy ourselves. Sometimes we go out and have a couple too many cocktails or a little too much of the wacky tobacco or whatever the stuff is that you do in this world. And guess what? I'm not putting you down for having a loose foot one night on a Friday. That's not what I'm doing. I'm saying be careful of what we do, because our actions speak louder than our words. I can tell you I'm a good person and I'm not a violent man anymore. But if I walk out the door and I smash a guy right down at the corner of our office here, am I really showing true action of change, sir?
I'd say no.
No? Sorry, guys. We're in a production studio and someone just walked in and didn't know we were in there. And so that's not showing you actions, is it?
No.
But if I walk out there and a guy tells me off, like these guys witnessed, one guy threatened to murder and rape my wife, and then started swinging, screaming, and flailing at me. Kill me, man, kill me, crying. I just looked at him and said, oh, sweet child, you're so broken, you don't even know it. Now, could I have lashed out at him, guys?
Oh, yeah.
Did I have the right to lash out at him? He just threatened to kill me and my wife. He took a swing at me. I am legally allowed to stomp him down. But would that have shown that I changed? Nope. No, that just would have shown I was a justified monster, like previously being a monster. Justified or not, still a monster. So we got to change those attributes. We got to change those sides of us. And I'm grateful that I have great men in our church that are leading. And these are the kind of men that are leading. People like Paul, that good friend of mine that I love very much. I've never heard a man transform and become such a kind. He's a kind person, and a lot of people didn't know he was a kind person because he had this image and this harder shell. Now he's a man that when you say I love you, he responds back and says I love you. It's leaders like that. It's people like that leading away. That other men told me that story. They heard that touched them. They heard another man who's I won't say how old he is, but he's older than me by over a decade. And this guy says I love you, and it softened another guy's heart. So we have men in our church that are leading, but they're leading because they have examples. And that's what we do. We live by our actions. That's the example. So go out, live by your actions this week. Go tell somebody I love you that didn't deserve it. Go tell someone I forgive you that didn't deserve it. Go do something and be a man and a woman of your word. Change the world one person at a time. As we do this, let's remember to coexist in a peaceful and loving way. Love you guys. God bless.